These days, we tend to hear the word trauma a lot. It's become a buzzword in every TikTok video and tweet under the sun. It's used so often that it's difficult to know how to truly define trauma, and even more difficult, how to treat it. But did you know that nourishing the mind-body connection could be the key to recovering from these traumatic experiences? And did you know that modern researchers and psychologists are working hard to design healing methods that honor that connection? In The Body Keeps the Score, psychiatrist and author Bessel takes an evocative, research-backed deep dive into traumatic experiences, how they impact the mind and body, and how to begin to heal from them. Historically, people who have gone through traumatic experiences have been diagnosed with all kinds of disorders, and treated for those disorders with medication, psychotherapy, etc. But, according to Kolk, more and more research shows there is a need for a holistic approach to treatment. In this video, we'll explore how traumatic or painful experiences affect the psyche, and how a survivor can use the mind-body connection to support their healing. For more great book summary videos, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button. If you find this video helpful, click the like button and let us know what you think. Let's start with defining traumatic experiences and exploring how they can affect a person. And as a disclaimer, often I'll use the word trauma or traumatic experience, but I may also use the term extreme experience or difficult experience or destabilizing event. As for the definition, the author uses trauma as an umbrella term for an event or ongoing experience that makes you feel powerless. However, he seems to recognize that the scale of the event can fall along a broad spectrum, and no matter the scale of an experience, research seems clear that nourishing the mind-body connection can lead to healing. But before we dive into the steps of healing, let's look at the impact of traumatic experiences on the psyche. Research shows that extreme destabilizing events change the psyche and can create the following frustrating or painful psychological challenges. Challenge number 1 is trust issues and isolation. Survivors have a very difficult time trusting others after trauma has occurred. Everyone can feel like a threat. It can also just be difficult to connect to others because survivors often assume no one will understand how they feel. Challenge number 2 is shame and learned helplessness. Many survivors find it difficult to release shame for their choices before, during, or after a destabilizing event. This shame is often not rational but feels very overwhelming for the survivor. There can also be a long-term sense of resignation or powerlessness, especially if the traumatic experience was inescapable, like war or a major accident. Challenge number 3 is flashbacks and PTSD. Survivors can have their senses easily triggered by their environment and end up experiencing flashbacks to traumatic events. Unfortunately, these flashbacks can happen at any time, for any length of time, and for unpredictable reasons. This keeps survivors stuck in their memories of painful experiences instead of on the road to healing. As a result, they struggle to be present and can also go through life feeling numb as a protective response. Unfortunately, there are some who are critical of survivors for not being strong enough. It's important to understand that they can't help these responses. When you've gone through an extreme experience, it can literally change the makeup of the brain, not just in terms of how and what you think, but your capacity to think too. Certain events can be so overwhelming that the brain isn't able to fully process them. Parts of the brain shut down while other parts go haywire. All these changes can propel the brain and body into a chronic fight or flight mode. This mode is also known as hypervigilance. Like I alluded to earlier, hypervigilance can sometimes cause survivors to react to harmless situations as though they're threats. Unfortunately, this only feeds the issue. It keeps the brain and body in a vicious cycle and a constant state of stress. The effect of this is that the experience never feels like something from the past. Brain scans of survivors in the middle of flashbacks prove this. What you see in the scan is that basically, to the brain, there's no difference between the flashback and the actual event. It feels like the trauma is happening that very moment. Why? Well, the brain is split into 3 main categories: the basic needs system, the emotional system, and the logic system. The first 2 are primitive. They handle things like bodily functions and scanning for threats. Together, they're like the security team at a major corporation. The job of the third system is logic and reasoning. So it's a bit like the CEO of that major corporation. Extreme experiences mess with the way these systems process. Depending on how severe an event is, it can create chronic difficulty with the activation of logic and reasoning. So instead of the CEO being in charge of its security team, the security ends up calling all the shots, whether security is necessary or not. Given all this information, it's not surprising that lots of treatments have attempted to address the impact of trauma by working with the brain or psyche. However, more and more research shows that the mind and body are much more closely connected than conventional medicine has given credit for. We all know sensations in the body can cause emotion, and emotion can cause sensations in the body. But like we touched on earlier, painful or extreme experiences cause extremely intense emotions and sensations in the body. This can become too much for a person, and it can cause them to start suppressing emotions and sensations in their day-to-day life, sometimes even to the point of feeling completely disconnected from their body. This really creates a lot of challenges, because emotions and physical sensations tell us what we need. They compel us to take care of ourselves. So without that connection to the body, it can be very difficult for survivors to maintain health and well-being. It can also make it difficult for them to connect to others or experience life in a way that feels whole. Sometimes suppression even leads to somatic illnesses or other physical ailments. This is because the body is seeking to somehow draw attention to itself, so the suppression can be addressed. Okay, pause. I know that all this information may seem heavy, but there is hope for healing. So let's talk about that now. In this section, we'll explore some potential approaches to healing and common methods for implementing those approaches. Put simply, according to the book, there are 3 pillars that are key to healing. Pillar 1, finding and maintaining calm. Pillar 2, learning to be fully present and engaged. Pillar 3, learning how to be with and manage what you feel. According to Kolk, you can take one of 3 approaches to strengthening these pillars: the top-down approach, the medication approach, and the bottom-up approach. Let's look at each one. The top-down approach involves opening up to and connecting with others about your experiences and their impact on you. Trauma survivors often carry 2 parallel stories about their experiences. These stories come from 2 different types of self-awareness and are controlled by 2 different parts of the brain. They're called autobiographical and moment-to-moment awareness. Autobiographical self-awareness connects to your experiences in a linear way, like a timeline that tells an ongoing story. It's controlled by the rational brain, and it creates the narrative of your life that you communicate to others. Moment-to-moment awareness occurs on a deeper, more personal and primitive level. It's controlled by the emotional brain, and it's rooted in physical sensations. However, it can be verbalized if a person is given time to process. With trauma, these systems conflict with one another. For example, after an extreme event, you may say that you're fine, but you notice symptoms of anxiety or depression in the body. Saying you're fine is autobiographical self-awareness, and the symptoms in the body are moment-to-moment awareness. The goal of treatment is to reconnect the rational and emotional brain to one another. More specifically, the goal is to help the survivor develop a dialogue with those primitive inner sensations. The top-down approach aims to do that by encouraging you to connect with and then express your inner experience. But before we go further, it's important to acknowledge that this approach isn't necessarily right for everyone. Talking about painful experiences before you have the tools to cope with the emotions that come up can be re-traumatizing. It can also be difficult for survivors to verbalize what happened to them. That being said, there are 3 benefits to this approach. First, communicating about traumatic experiences keeps you from burying them. This means you can acknowledge what happened to you and learn to manage the emotions that come up about it. Second, it gives you your energy back. Bottling emotions zaps all your fuel, making it difficult to be fully engaged in life. And even when you're suppressing emotions, hypervigilance tends to keep those pesky stress hormones running in the background, which causes physical reactions like headaches, digestive issues, or unpredictable behavior. Lastly, opening up to others makes you feel listened to and understood. This supports you to reconnect with yourself and reintegrate into your community. There are many top-down methods you can use to experience these benefits. Aside from traditional talk therapy, 2 popular approaches include internal family systems therapy and art therapy. Internal family systems therapy involves identifying different parts of you that come out in different environments. Working with these parts in survivors can help a person find internal balance after being fragmented by destabilizing experiences. And art therapy can be extremely helpful for those who struggle to connect to or express their inner experience verbally. Dance, music, drawing can all be effective methods for connecting with yourself deeply, moment to moment, and expressing your inner experience without judgment. Another well-known treatment strategy is medication. This involves using prescribed drugs to calm the overactive internal alarm system. They can also be used to impact brain chemistry in a way that relieves suffering. Common options are SSRIs for depression and benzodiazepines for anxiety. Taking medication is still popular, but has become less popular in modern times. Kolk seems to believe that medication can be very effective under the right circumstances, but also lists some potential drawbacks. For one, without therapy, taking medication may only treat the symptoms of trauma rather than addressing the root of the symptoms. For some survivors, it can also feel less empowering. Some don't like feeling like they need to rely on doctors and insurance companies. Additionally, it's the approach that the media and the medical system are most likely to suggest, so some survivors can feel pressured into trying it, even if it may not be the most appropriate choice. Regardless, it became a common approach for a reason, and for many, it's the best one to begin your healing journey with. That said, the author actually favors the third treatment strategy, which is called the bottom-up approach. So let's dive into that. This strategy is basically what the heart of this book is getting at. It's the approach that most honors the role of the body in the recovery process. It does this by using physical experiences to reconnect the body to the mind. Because so many survivors feel like they lost control of their bodily responses after painful experiences, regaining that sense of control is a powerful type of recovery. Kolk believes reintegration of the body and mind is the key to this. The book goes into a wide variety of bottom-up methods, but we'll explore 3 of the most common ones: yoga, psychomotor therapy, and theater. Now, yoga is already a popular practice for those who want to connect more to their bodies. Some use it as exercise, others as a spiritual practice. Those with trauma can use it to reintegrate the mind and body. There are a few reasons why yoga can be so healing for people who have gone through major destabilizing events. First, there's a deep focus on the breath. Practitioners are encouraged to be present with each inhale and exhale. Observing the breath like this over time can help reduce the symptoms of stress in the body. Second, speaking of the body, yoga is all about connecting to the body. Instructors teach practitioners to listen to and respond to the sensations in the body. For survivors, this helps them to become more aware of their bodies. It also helps them to feel more safe. It can return a sense of control and help them take care of their well-being. Third, yoga helps you to recognize that certain emotions are connected to certain physical sensations. Observing the body during practice can help survivors work through flashbacks and the triggers that cause them. And finally, yoga actually can help give a survivor their sense of time back. Remember, those who experience trauma can get stuck in their memories. Yoga supports you to be present. This helps you learn that all emotions, sensations, and experiences have a beginning and end point. There's even tons of research to show that yoga helps boost the part of the brain that keeps you from seeing minor things as threats. The second method, psychomotor therapy, helps you to heal by physically recreating painful memories and giving you the power to rewrite the story. Research shows that creating a physical representation of the memories taps into the part of the brain where the trauma is stored. Once you're tapped in, you can make adjustments that have long-term positive effects. The therapy itself is usually done in a group setting. During the session, one person talks about their painful memories, and the therapist verbalizes observations about the person's body language. The mirroring allows the survivor to feel seen and supported. Then everyone in the group is directed by the survivor to play a role in the memory they're working through, and they get to make adjustments to the story in real time. For example, saying things they never got to say or making new choices. The purpose of this method is to give people a sense of control back and help them rewrite their narrative in their own words. And while it doesn't get rid of traumatic memories, it can help a survivor to add new positive experiences to add to the narrative. The final method is another already popular activity. Theater is pretty ancient. We've practically been doing it since our caveman days. But modern research shows that for survivors, it can help reconnect the mind and body. It does this by targeting a lot of the pain points they struggle with. For one, playing another character allows them to step outside their own experience and embody a new experience. Maybe they get to work through conflict or experience community as a more secure, confident character. This helps them get in touch with their emotions or vulnerability in a less direct way. Actors are also very physically aware people. They need to project their voices on stage and carry their bodies differently depending on the character. Many people who go through trauma often prefer to minimize themselves. So theater can be an effective way to give survivors tools for re-inhabiting their bodies and expressing themselves. The other key benefit of theater is the sense of community. Being part of a cast allows survivors to feel part of something bigger than themselves and their experiences. Working together with castmates in scenes helps survivors learn to trust again. This can be soothing and evoke a sense of hope. Like I said, there are several more bottom-up methods in the book, but these are just 3 of the most common. Oh my goodness. we have come to the end of the video. So much powerful information. I feel a little overwhelmed. Maybe you do too. Let's take a moment and take a deep cleansing breath together. Ready? Inhale. Exhale. Good. Wonderful. I know this can be very heavy subject matter, but I hope we have shared a lot of helpful and comforting information in this video. If you're feeling any stress from taking it all in, please take the time to care for yourself in any way you need. The book also has lots of great insights into the mind-body connection that we didn't have time to cover in this video. If you're interested in going deeper, check out the Shortform guide to The Body Keeps the Score. Shortform makes the world's best guides to nonfiction books, complete with well-crafted short exercises to help you learn faster and remember more. You can get a 5-day free trial and a discounted annual subscription if you go to shortform.com/YouTube. Click the link in the description below. And support the author and publisher by buying The Body Keeps the Score. A link to buy the book is below as well. And finally, hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss the next short form video. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.